Welcome into 49ers Access, and the 2025 NFL Draft is in the books, and it culminated in a polarizing and exciting day 3 of action that saw the San Francisco 49ers make 7 new additions to the roster, and we're going to break it all down for you tonight. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe, give us that 5-star audio podcast review, and let's jump in on day 3 of the NFL Draft right here on 49ers Access. Folks, the NFL Draft is over, and it was one for the memory because a lot of good, some bad, a lot of question marks are had. Didn't mean to rhyme there, so I apologize for that. But there are a lot of things that fans still are wondering what's going on with the San Francisco 49ers. And I can tell you this, if there's one thing I've learned, whether it is during free agency, but especially throughout this draft process, it is that it's really hard to make Niner fans happy. It feels like every 5 minutes, it's a, why'd they pick that guy? Why'd they pick this guy? There's overwhelming anger, this upset feeling of like they failed in this year's draft. And I'm going to push back on that a little bit today. I can give you some credit here or there, but I do want to say that the NFL draft is always kind of tantalizing because fans want their prospects. Selfishly, I want my favorite team, the San Francisco 49ers, to pick players that I liked when I scouted. That's what most fans do. That's a fine thing to do. I get it. I understand it. And when you see those players dropping off the board or San Francisco standing idly by, not making trades, or simply just not taking them, it angers us. It makes us angry. It gives us reason to think that San Francisco didn't do a good job. And to a certain extent, I can see the case for that stance. But let's not forget, whether it's day 1, day 2, day 3, a UDFA, none of these guys are finished products. What you saw in college may not be what you see at the NFL level. What you see in training camp may not what you see at or during the regular season. So stay patient, stick with me here. And one thing I want to address is the San Francisco 49ers not drafting an offensive lineman early in this year's draft. Because if there is one sticking point, if there is more than simply just, why didn't you take the prospect I liked? The consensus argument against San Francisco in this year's draft was, for the 3rd year in a row, you didn't address the offensive line. Now, last year, it was Dominic Puni, but fans weren't happy about that. This year, they didn't take one till round 7, so fans are irate. They're questioning who's playing left guard. Jake Brandel's back at center. What's going on? And I think there is a part of me that wants to be in that group, wants to be in that category, especially when you discuss some of the reaches they may have made, especially in the 3rd and 4th round this year, when you dive into exactly what John Lynch had to say about the offensive line and why they didn't address it earlier on. I have the quote right in front of me, and it's only part of it, but it's the real, like, in-depth, this is why they didn't take it, and it's kind of a load of crap. And I'm going to push back on it to begin today's show because the quote from John Lynch when asked, why did you not draft an offensive lineman until the 7th round? He said this: there were a number of times we were interested in adding and it just didn't come our way. And you got to stay true to where you have guys graded, not just take guys to take them, but take guys you're interested in at that point, and it never really aligned. John, I love you. I think this draft class is an overwhelming success based on the talent you got and where you got it. Don't lie to the people. This is a crock of crap. It's an outright lie. You took players, Nicholas Martin, who of the group you had, the 11th draft picks that you made, was probably the biggest reach at pick 75. You probably could have had him at pick 128 and 160 maybe. You let Charles Grant go. You didn't draft Miles Frazier. You didn't even sign UDFA's Willie Lampkin and company. So, but to John's credit, you can't just draft guys because they're there. And I think a big portion of the fan base just sees guard, tackle, guard, and says, why didn't you get that guy? Why didn't you get that guy? some guys don't fit your system. Some guys you can't run the wide zone. And the biggest example of this to me is guard Tyler Booker. He goes to the Cowboys, one pick after San Francisco. Tyler Booker is a guard. You'd think the theory was he's a guard, get him. Tyler Booker does not fit the wide zone scheme. He's a gap guard. No team running the Shanahan style offense was going to pick Tyler Booker. The Cowboys could, the Ravens could, not the Dolphins, not the Rams, not the Vikings, not the Browns, not the San Francisco 49ers. So to give John credit, although I think he's full of it here, some guards don't fit your scheme. And I'm hoping by the end of this podcast, you'll see Connor Colby, a guy they did pick in round 7, may actually fit their scheme better than, say, a Tyler Booker, who went all the way in round number 1. Want to say what's up to Mr. Dragonfruit on YouTube. He says hello. Fluffy Ninja says bang, bang. That's right, brother. And you have one question here for me to start things off on the show. You say, why didn't we pick up, I'm assuming, Shedeur Sanders, if we're going to pick up a quarterback? I would say go ask Mel Kiper that. He seemingly has a lot to say when it comes to Shedeur Sanders and his tirade, his rant that was at the NFL draft on Sunday. But I'll tell you this, look, Shedeur Sanders, I think, is the second best quarterback in this year's draft class. I think a lot of teams, from a talent-based standpoint, are going to not regret taking him, but probably should have taken him. Even the Browns, who it looked like that was an ownership stepping in and saying, you just take Shedeur, but just get it over with. You got Dylan Gabriel, go get Shedeur Sanders, end this circus in what's happening currently. But if you're the San Francisco 49ers and you're going to pay Brock Purdy $55 million a year for the next 3 or 4 years, you are committing to a guy for the third time in your regime's history. The last thing you want is to draft Shedeur Sanders, bring in a sideshow, his posse, Deion Sanders, the limelight, the NIL money. That in itself is enough to say no. The talent's there to be a fine quarterback at the NFL level. But on top of that, I know a lot of us don't want to buy into anonymous sourcing, but you heard that throughout the entire process. Anonymous source says this, and I know you hear it from some people and you're like, yeah, right. But even Tom Pelissero, NFL Network, said he heard people in the interview rooms did not like Shedeur. He came across as he controlled things, not the teams who were going to draft him. Even Deion Sanders was up until March telling teams and people on social media openly, like, we control things. He's not going to blah, blah, blah. It wasn't until March where he was like, he'll go to anybody. So a lot of reasons why, mainly off the field reasons why you don't take Shedeur Sanders. But even Kurtis Rourke, who we'll dive into today, not a big fan of that draft pick either. So a good question. Papa J says, what's up, Sterling? Like and subscribe. And let's dive into San Francisco's first day 3 pick, round 4, pick 113 overall, defensive tackle out of Indiana. My favorite pick of the draft class for San Francisco. That is C.J. West. He's 6'1", 317 pounds, only 22 years old. Let me tell you, folks, if you ask me to describe C.J. West, I can do it in 2 ways for you. The first one is he a big old dog. He's going to get up in there, eat some guards up, move some centers over, and just open up holes for your edge rushers and your other defensive tackles on the interior. He'll be a dog in the running game. He will just be a monster for you on the interior. And the other way, and it's one that if my mom's watching, Mom, turn off here. I'm going to say some naughty words here. And I may sing for you for a second, because C.J. West is a brick shit house. C.J. West is awesome. He's eating up dudes in the middle. C.J. West is a brick house. You do not want to mess with the San Francisco 49ers defensive line with who they got, Mykel Williams, Alfred Collins, and capping things off with C.J. West. I'll tell you what, folks, it's really hard for me to say San Francisco, albeit could have found a pass rusher on the interior. That's still a need. it's really hard for me to poke holes in what their strategy is. The Cardinals, the Rams, the Seahawks. You are not going to be able to run against San Francisco. There's going to be a stone wall. Shout out Stonewall Jackson. You're not getting through it. It's a brick house. It's a brick wall. You're going to see Kyron Williams and James Conner and Kenneth Walker III. They're not going to go anywhere. Whether it's guards, centers, tackles, San Francisco may walk into this year with not the best run defense, but they're going to walk out of the draft feeling really good, telling the opposing teams in the NFC West, especially, like, enough's enough. It's over with. You got two of the best run defending defensive tackles in this year's draft. You have one of the best edge setters now in Mykel Williams. Saleh walked in and said, look, you gutted the defense. I'm going to rebuild that puppy in one draft, especially on the run side of things. And I think San Francisco, with this pick in C.J. West, they hit a home run. A lot of you wanted DJ Jones in free agency. I wanted DJ Jones in free agency. And you know when you're driving past the McDonald's when you're 8 years old saying, Mom, can we get McDonald's? I want chicken nugget. And your mom says, you got DJ Jones at home? This is your DJ Jones at home if you are San Francisco. He jumps off the tape. He's a bona fide nose tackle. He's relentless on the interior as a worker. He's a bowling ball style nose tackle. Again, the pro comp is a clear 1-for-1 DJ Jones. He's awesome. He holds the line. He is unmovable on the interior. And he'll take on double teams. He'll absorb both blockers, and he can still split those up and get back into the backfield and still make some tackles. Again, he is just a tremendous talent. I am so happy he's in San Francisco because he is incredible. And I know a lot of the complaints, and I think my biggest complaint of this draft class was you didn't get Vernon Broughton. You didn't get Joshua Farmer. You didn't get Aeneas Peebles on day 3 or later on day 3. A lot of guys who I think could really help you as a pass rusher. They didn't do that. I do think there is some pass rushing upside with C.J. West. He has shorter arms. It's not going to help him, but I do think he has some movement there. He's so powerful where I always tell you this, the fastest way to the quarterback is through the center. C.J. West and Alfred Collins can get through to the center. They'll bully dudes up the middle. And I know the Seahawks aren't their biggest threat. They had a great draft throw, but the Rams, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, San Francisco's defensive line is so powerful. You're going to see dudes getting shoved back, centers, guards, on a down-to-down basis. And of course, then you have Nick Bosa. There is some depth concerns there on the defensive line, but overall, this is an awesome pick, an awesome player. He'll stack and shed. He's probably the best run defender in this class next to Alfred Collins. And San Francisco got both those guys. I have a great stat for you here. It's a perfect kind of amalgamation as to why C.J. West and Alfred Collins were picked by San Francisco. A lot of you out there wanted Darius Alexander. I wanted him too. A lot of you out there had your defensive tackle pick. And I'm going to tell you why San Francisco picked Alfred Collins and especially C.J. West early on day 3. Last year, San Francisco used 7+ box defenders on 76% of running plays. That was the 7th highest percentage of 7+ defenders in the box. And San Francisco ran the 5th highest number of percentage of plays with 8 defenders in the box. San Francisco was loading the box all the time, almost 3/4 of the time with run defenders on running plays in the box. Despite that, 29th in EPA per rush, 29th in explosive run rate, 31st in rushing touchdown rate, 24th in negative runs forced, 24th in yards before contact. They were getting pushed around on the interior every single week. It was a massive reason as to why they lost. You talk about a defense that was constantly finding themselves in 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, 2nd and 2. The Niners now are almost telling opposing teams, good luck getting to 3rd and 5. Good luck getting to 3rd and 4. San Francisco is putting a brick wall, a stone wall up saying, We want to force you into more third and longs. How do you do that? You stop the run. And San Francisco got two of the best run defensive tackles in this year's draft class, Alfred Collins and C.J. West. If you want one word, not a sentence, not a phrase, one word to describe Alfred Collins and C.J. West, what both those two picks mean, go back to the old Wendy's ad where she says, "Where's the beef?" San Francisco found the beef now on the defensive line. They added over 645 pounds, almost 650 pounds to the interior of the defensive line, not even counting the 265 Mykel Williams weighs. So the Niners just bulked up, beefed up, and added so much power on the interior. And I tell you this, there's so many reasons to love C.J. West, so many players to fall in love with, because the tape, it's really hard to match tape with mentality, and C.J. West has a killer's mentality. I'm going to read you two quotes here. One is from his mouth verbatim. The other one's on his Instagram profile. C.J. West, in his post-draft press conference, said this: "I just abuse centers, punch them in the face, be as violent as possible." If that's not the mentality you want on your defensive line, I don't know what you're looking for. That's exactly what you want from C.J. West on your defensive line. The next quote via his Instagram profile, in it, it's three small words: "I hate quarterbacks." If that is not what you want on the interior, folks, he's a great player, great mentality. He's a good dude overall. He's rather young compared to Darius Alexander. He's 25. West is 23 years old, or 22, excuse me. But he's just a great player, great mentality. He wants to eat dudes up. And I tell you this, for all the hate we give Jake Brendel, I feel so bad for him, because every practice he has to face C.J. West and Alfred Collins. Now, sometimes iron sharpens iron, and maybe he'll get better. But man, that dude's going to be broken and bruised before week 1, because they got quarterback hunters and killers on the interior now. So it's a great pick for San Francisco. Love this pick. It's a home run for them. Again, you get now a phenomenal run defensive tackle, 2 of them, mind you, for the next 4 years on a pretty cheap contract. And even if Saleh is a 1-year rental, this draft dictated the defense that it's come for years. Like, they got dudes and dogs on the defensive line. Now, obviously, they have to grow and get better. And I think mainly Mykel Williams and C.J. West can grow to be a competent, if not good, pass rushers. And I think C.J. West, they're hoping, can grow faster as a pass rusher than Alfred Collins. It's there. Got to unlock it. You have Kosaric, you have Saleh. There's a lot to like from C.J. West. And overall, you fast forward 5-10 years now, you may look back and say that was the steal of the draft for San Francisco. So it's a great pick. And funny enough, 2025, we saw what they did. They gutted the defensive line. Hufunga's gone. Greenlaw's gone. Floyd's gone. Collins is gone. A lot of cuts. If you rewind the clock all the way back to 1981, this was the first time since 1981 the San Francisco 49ers took 5 defensive players with their first 5 picks in the NFL draft. I'll ask you this. What happened in 1981? I'm not saying it's going to be Lombardi time, but usually teams don't do this. But when they do it for San Francisco, it has worked out in good ways. Now, obviously, I believe that was the Ronnie Lott draft. So if Mykel Williams becomes a Hall of Famer, then it's even better. But it's pretty high expectations for a team, I think, needs it in a big way. But they did pop their offensive cherry on day 3 in round 4, bringing us to their second pick of the day at 138 overall. Wide receiver out of Ole Miss, Jordan Watkins, 5'11", 196 pounds, 23 years old. And this is where a lot of people's gripes picked up. Because a lot of people complained about Nicholas Martin. I was not against the pick, just where it happened. I think Nicholas Martin was probably going to be there on day 3, but who knows? Maybe I'm wrong there. This is where a lot of people started to say, wait a minute. And if you were lost on day 2 because of Nicholas Martin pick, you were even more lost on day 3 because of this pick here. They won you back with C.J. West, and they lost you all over again with Jordan Watkins. But I do want to let you know that this pick actually, it might be pretty good when it's all said and done, because he's a 3-year starter at Ole Miss. He is a sure-handed field stretcher, an excellent deep ball tracker. He caught 55.6% of contested catches. That's really good. The idea that those are 50-50 balls are incorrect. It's more about 30-70, 20-80. The receiver usually doesn't win those. He caught over 50% of them last year at Ole Miss. And to kind of give you some perspective, Colston Loveland, who got picked right in front of Mykel Williams, number 10 overall, Chicago Bears tight end out of Michigan, only a 35% contested catch rate. So I get it, different positions, different offenses, but there's a 20% gap difference in Jordan Watkins' favor as a contested catch receiver over a top 10 overall pick in this past year's draft. So that's a big sign to me. You like that. He'll get downfield for you. He has 4.3 speed. He can play in the slot. He can play outside. And he mainly moved outside when Trey Harris got hurt last year for Ole Miss. So when guys get hurt, he stepped up. He's really good against press coverage. He has footwork to avoid those jams. One of the big complaints last year against Ricky Pearsall was he can't beat press coverage. Jordan Watkins can beat press coverage. I think he's an underrated route runner. I think he has a relatively expansive route tree. There are some times instead of cutting into his routes, he'll roll into them, kind of be a little sloppy. So there is some things to crisp up and tighten up, but overall underrated. He's not going to be Ladd McConkey, not going to be Aiyuk, not going to be Pearsall, but there is some things to like from him as a route runner. He also is a high IQ player. He knows when to stay down in zone, sit in the soft bubbles in zone coverage, and like every Shanahan wide receiver, you got to be able to eat over the middle of the football field. Jordan Watkins is very comfortable over the middle as a wide receiver. He's pretty explosive. And I think, one of the bigger complaints here with Jordan Watkins is 4th rounder, 6th round kind of consensus conversation with him. Could you have gotten him? I think one of the bigger conversations you have to have here is that Jalen Royals goes a couple picks in front of him. You have A.O. Manor from Stanford goes to Tennessee, a couple picks in front of him too. So receivers are starting to come off the board. Isaiah Bond has the off-the-field stuff, and San Francisco loves to draft a speedy guy, usually on day 2, day 3. I think that San Francisco saw, hey, like we can dictate the board, or we can let the NFL do it to us. And in this case, I think the NFL around them, the 31 other teams, they dictated what San Francisco did here. Now, it may not pay off, but I do think San Francisco said, hey, guys are flying off the board. We got to get our guy or he's going to be gone. Now, I think this is kind of unlike the Nicholas Martin pick where you can almost guarantee that was a reach. They got overzealous. They wanted their guy. It was Saleh saying, I want that guy, get him right now. In this case, this was, okay, Saleh, yeah, first 5 picks, Shanahan's like, I got to get my guys or they're going to be gone. It wasn't a panic move, but it was, okay, there's receivers off the board going quickly here. Let's get our guy before he's gone. He'll also give you some versatility on special teams, 7.9 yards as a punt returner. He had 36 punt returns over the last couple of years for 292 yards, even 1 touchdown. So he can work his way into a role somewhere his first season as a San Francisco 49er. There is some bad, though. It's not a perfect pick. I'm not saying it's perfect. The 4.3 speed he has isn't always consistent. He has burst. He has speed. But sometimes there are some plays where you're like, okay, you have it. Where is it? I think getting a more consistent motor from him is a big want for San Francisco. And trust me, Kyle is one of those people where if you don't have it, you ain't going to play. There is a place where for Jordan Watkins' name in a doghouse year one. I can certainly see it happening. They'll have the big training camp, tank top on that has the monitor on it, and it'll be in the pads too. And they'll see how hard you're working out there. And I think you may hear some time of like, why isn't Jordan Watkins playing? And that'll come up. I don't think it's an effort thing. I just think there are times where you want a little more from him using his speed. He isn't the best blocker, but he's willing to block. He's not the best one. He needs some help. There's a willingness to grow as a player, just not the execution just yet. The other kind of worry about this pick is that Kyle Shanahan loves to draft speedy wide receivers on day 2, on day 3, mainly in round 3, and stash them for a year. Danny Gray was a big one. And then Cowling last year, who I think can find a way on the team and on the field this year. Hopefully he's got the blocking down because he kind of should play. He's a good gadget player for them. But the hope is that he's not going to be Danny Gray. And I think with Danny Gray, he just didn't have it between the years. The effort wasn't there. It was like, I'm just a go ball guy, and that's not what you're supposed to be. I think Jordan Watkins having the route tree, having the ability, sometimes you're going to swing and miss, and San Francisco has swung plenty of times. But I do think Jordan Watkins is more like, say, Ricky Pearsall compared to a Danny Gray. Now, him and Pearsall are different, but there are some similar traits. And really, San Francisco hasn't had a deep threat probably since, like Marquise Goodwin? Like a true, legit deep threat. And so you're hoping San Francisco can have that field stretcher, guy that can get downfield, take the top op, open things for Pearsall, Aiyuk, Jennings, DeMarcus Robinson, George Kittle, obviously. And I think that's the big question. Like, what is the role for Jordan Watkins in year one? Because he has some punt return flexibility. Aiyuk's going to be out probably until November. DeMarcus Robinson may get suspended for 3 games. Who knows what will happen there? So there is going to be a chance where, you're talking about Pearsall, Jennings, Cowing, maybe Tariq Owens is involved somewhere, but Jordan Watkins can find his way onto the field for legit playing time in year one. But I think training camp is going to be so big for him because he's a 4th-round pick, almost the exact same place where Cowing was picked. So you're on similar ground with him. I think Jordan Watkins can jump Cowing on the roster in depth chart in year one. I think he's a better player than Cowing. He's bigger than Cowing. I think his play translates to the NFL more than Cowing's does. Different players, different traits, but I think Jordan Watkins can walk into his rookie season with Aiyuk being hurt and Robinson being suspended, maybe as like a legit rotational piece or a 3rd receiver. But again, it all depends on the effort. Is the speed always there for him? But I like this pick a lot for them. Is it a reach? Maybe. If you go to his RAS score, which it can be flawed sometimes, but the comparable players were Curtis Samuel. And Curtis Samuel was a darn good player for a long time with the Commanders, at the time the Redskins, and with the Panthers and with the Bills. So that's a pretty good player to get, especially on day 3. I think there's a good fit there for San Francisco. Again, 5'11", almost 200 pounds. His size, his play, the way he plays fits. He's a deep ball guy. He'll go up and get it. He's nifty. He's swift. And a pretty good and underrated route runner. So I like the pick. Was it a reach? Maybe, but I can justify it more than Nicholas Martin's draft selection at pick 75. But I do like the pick overall. Kawachipto says this here on the YouTube chat: Watkins will be the backup X wide receiver. He's the exact same size as Brandon Aiyuk minus the arm length. Yeah, I mean, look, I think what Aiyuk does for you is so centered on the middle of the football field, the deep crossers and stuff. And I think you're right in a way that Watkins can do a lot of those same things. Aiyuk being a 1st-round talent for a reason, Watkins being a 4th-rounder for a reason. But I do think there's a lot to like. Just 4.3 speed. There is things Aiyuk doesn't possess that Watkins does. But again, it's the motor. Is it going to be there continually? If it is, this is a good pick for San Francisco. And I think when you get into a really deep conversation of, do they want to trade Brandon Aiyuk next offseason? Juwan Jennings' contract is up next offseason. Do you start to kind of talk about Jordan Watkins being a legit piece of the future if all that clicks for him, maybe in 2026, maybe as early as this season? I think there is a lot of Jalen Noel light from him, who went to the Texans earlier in the draft. Very similar players, different sizes, mind you, but very similar players. It's almost like if you didn't get Jalen Noel, you want Jordan Watkins. I think there's a route for Jordan Watkins, and this is a pretty big pro comp, and I want you to breathe when I say it. There's a route for Jordan Watkins to have a similar path to playing time like Tyler Lockett. I think that, Lockett came in 5'10", 5'11", slot guy, was kind of that mid-round pick. He shocked some people. Who is this guy? And became one of the best receivers in the NFC West the past decade or so. I think Jordan Watkins, again, everything has to go right, but there is a little bit of Tyler Lockett play style. And the way I think he does go up and get the football, he attacks the football in the air. I like it a lot. And I think it gives you a lot more than Cowing does, Tariq Owens does, Isaiah Hodgins does. I think this is a good pick for San Francisco, and it could pay off dividends if the plan is in, a year's time to say goodbye to Brandon Aiyuk when it's all said and done. So a very, very, very light Tyler Lockett comparison for Jordan Watkins. Round 4, pick 138 for San Francisco. And moving along to pick number 3 of the day. In round 5, 147 overall, running back Jordan James from Oregon. Now, if you know me, you've watched the channel or the podcast, I was a DJ Giddens truther. And it pains me to say San Francisco passed up on my boy a lot out of Kansas State. But what does Jordan James give you? Would I have picked DJ Giddens? Yes. But what does Jordan James give you? He's 5'10", 208 pounds, only 21 years old. He's a sturdy back that wants to punish people at the line of scrimmage. 36.5% of his carries were first downs or touchdowns. He's a high-effort player. He doesn't want to go down. He's not a quick guy. He doesn't have home run speed. He's a 4.5 40 time, but he's got power. Very balanced player through contact, after contact. He's a no-nonsense type of guy. He wants to lower his head. He's not going to make you miss in the open field. He'll say, can I go through you instead? And he's got that pop. He's got that power. He's got that contact. He wants to stay up. He'll fight for extra yards. Again, not a home run hitter. He's not going to be Guerendo or Christian McCaffrey. However, he ranked 10th in the FBS for carries of 10 or more yards at nearly 40. He hit 39 of those suckers for 10 or more yards. So again, in that kind of 10 to 15 yard range, he's a dog. He can get to that second level, lower his head, knock some guys down. And I think he's actually a really good complement to Isaac Guerendo, who last year he's a speedster. He's a wide zone guy, not an end zone guy. He's a boomer bust kind of player. He has that 4.3 speed. He's a wide receiver archetype, wants to get out in space, make guys miss, has relatively poor vision. Jordan James is the exact opposite player. Not 4.3 speed, 4.5 speed. Not poor vision, really good vision. Isn't a home run hitter. He wants to hit doubles. He wants to hit singles. He wants to do the dirty work, give him 10 touches a game, 15 touches a game, and say, hey, can you give me 75 yards, 60 yards on a meaningful third down? Can you alleviate Christian McCaffrey? He isn't the wide zone player. He's the inside zone player. He wants to go between those tackles, lower his head, get behind Ben Barch and Brendel and Dominic Pooney, and just continue drives. There are some players that we're going to get you touchdowns on first down. Jordan James gets you touchdowns by continuing drives. He's a drive continuer out of the backfield, and I think he is a really good Jordan Mason replacement. So You trade him away and you get what probably would have been Kyle Shanahan's third-round running back on day 3 in round 5. Hard to argue with that if you're a Niner fan. He isn't the biggest guy. He's a balanced player, very decisive in his cuts where he goes. Isaac Grendo last year, you could tell he was rather raw, needed time. And the more he played, the better he got. But there's some injury history there with Christian McCaffrey and Grendo now. Jordan James doesn't miss time. He's a 1-year starter at Oregon, fresh legs. And you guys know this, that one of the bigger complaints I had about Jadon Blue and Bashan Tootin, who were always mocked to San Francisco. All the people on Twitter, all the pundits were like, oh, these guys are going to be great. And that's Shanahan, San Francisco style. And I think those guys can have good NFL careers. However, every mock draft we did, we talked about this. Fumbles was a massive problem. And I said, Shanahan's going to hate this. This is not a Kyle Shanahan player. Turning the ball over, that's what you want? No way. Breida got cut mid-season or bench mid-season for that stuff. Jordan James in college, 0 fumbles. Zip, zilch, nada. He doesn't fumble the football. Sure-handed out of the backfield, 2 hands over the ball, lower your head, get in your cuts, find a hole and go. That's what Jordan James does. And I teased it on X and I teased it on Twitter. So you may want to follow me on those social media platforms. I said I was going to drop you a nugget, a stat that every Niner fan is going to love. Because what was a massive problem for San Francisco's offense last year? When they got to the red zone, they couldn't punch it in. They couldn't score. Was it a receiver problem? Was it a quarterback problem? An offensive line problem? A running back problem? Well, I'm here to let you know. Jordan James scored 15 touchdowns last year. Every single one of them came in the red zone. They got a dude that wants to punch his ticket to touchdown town whenever he's in there. He's a guy that says, oh, red zone, I'm seeing red. I want to get there. That's where I want to be. I don't want to be at the 25 or the 30. Get me inside the red zone now. Get me inside the saloon font in the red zone during the playoffs. That's what Jordan James does. I like this pick. Would it have been my choice? I don't know. Maybe not. But there's a lot to like from Jordan James out of Oregon. You heard the entire offseason. Again, wouldn't have been my pick, but who am I to question Bobby Turner and Kyle Shanahan, especially not in round 3. On day 3 is an entirely different question. Obviously, they have Grendo, they have Christian McCaffrey. You add Jordan James to that mix. He's going to probably be running back 2 this year. I think you're going to see a lot of Grendo and Jordan James, and of course, Christian McCaffrey. But if McCaffrey gets hurt, San Francisco has Jordan Mason 2.0, but doesn't fumble. Because the game against the Cardinals last year haunts me, where you're at the goal line, you were about to punch it in, take a lead, boom, fumble. And you're like, Jesus, man. Jordan James doesn't fumble and scores touchdowns once he gets to the red zone. And that was a good time to pause and say, if you could, like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to use that promo code 49ers Access, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Look, San Francisco added 11 players in this year's draft. Added a few UDFAs already, 5 or 6 signed. Corey Kiner out of Cincinnati, running back, could be a great pick. Probably should have been drafted. If you want to see any of those guys play this year, get your tickets at SeatGeek.com and use that promo code and see your 2025 San Francisco 49ers draft class live and in person at Levi Stadium or on the road too. You want to travel? Be part of the faithful? Use that promo code and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Papa J coming in hot, saying Trent Taylor better than Jordan Watkins. All right, Papa J, I may have to ask you to unsubscribe after that crap. Don't do that here. Trent is a vibes player only. Jordan Watkins can actually play in 2025, hopefully. But let's move on to, again, one of the polarizing picks for San Francisco, but makes more sense knowing now what we know with Malik Mustafa. So we didn't know about Malik Mustafa's re-injuring of the ACL until after the draft. We're riding high, 11 picks, like that guy. I didn't love that guy too much, but I love this guy. Then it's like every time you feel good, it's like Negan takes a baseball bat to your head like Glenn, or freaking Abby's out there just beating the crap out of Joel at that golf club, and you're like, my God, what the heck, man? Like, I hate being here when you have players getting hurt all the time. And Malik Mustafa, he re-injured the ACL, didn't tear it. That's a good thing. His mother has been very vocal on social media saying he's stronger than ever. He was jumping and sprinting. So there's some good stuff there. I think probably a little bit after the season opener, but I don't think it'll be mid-season as the reports are indicating, especially if you take what his mother and even Mustafa has said openly of like mid-season's crazy. So with that said, it does make the Marquise Seigel draft pick a little more digestible for some of us out there. Out of Kansas State, safety / nickelback, round 5, 160th overall. He's 5'11", 200 pounds, 22 years old. And I'll tell you this too. There's a reason why San Francisco and a lot of people loved Kansas State's defense this past year, and the offense too. There's a reason why I fell in love with DJ Giddens and Jacob Parrish. They had guys that wanted to fight on offense and defense. I loved Jacob Parrish, their cornerback. Smaller guy, but wanted to compete. He wanted to get crazy. He was a good dude. He wanted to get his hands dirty. He wanted to fight. He wanted to be a pesky, smaller guy that said, look, I may be David, but I will fight Goliaths 24/7 if it means I can play for this team. And while Marquise Seigel is smaller than him, there's a lot of traits that are similar. Again, they're different players. Parrish is a much better player at this point in time and probably will be for the next decade or so at the NFL level. But Kansas State's defense had a bunch of feisty underdogs that wanted to uppercut their opponents. It's a reason why, again, I love Jacob Parrish. And I'm sure it's a similar reason as to why San Francisco really wanted to draft Marquise Seigel. I think you now have two guys that give you that Saleh mold as a defensive back. You first have Upton Stout on day 2. You get Seigel on day 3. Both those guys are feisty, smaller, tinier dudes that are underrated. No one's talking about them. They're saying, look, you're going to know my name by the end of the night. You may beat me, but you're going to respect me at the end of the day. And I think, the Niners have been wanting, and fans have been wanting, that roaming, hovering free safety at the top ever since Jimmy Ward left. And I think Seigel, although really needs to improve in coverage, I think he can be that. There is speed there. I think he has the ability to, play a single high safety, cover Mustafa when he's back healthy, cover Jaya Brown, Jason Pinnock, and give San Francisco a little more trust behind the defense playing deep. But there are times he's late to cover. He'll leave throwing windows open. So there has to be some growth there. And I think that, he has the top end speed to improve the area of his game. He'll cover ground quickly. So there may be a gap there, but he'll close on it pretty quickly in what I call route squeeze, which is coined by TFG Marcus Whitman, who does a great job out there for his own YouTube channel, That Franchise Guy. He calls it route squeeze. And I think Marquise Seigel can route squeeze pretty well with the speed he has. He comes downhill with the purpose. He's a good, strong tackler. EJ Speed, I think is his name, from the Bootleg Football podcast. He called him an agent of chaos at the line of scrimmage. So you can tell there are traits Saleh checks off. Seigel has those as a DB. There may be concerns knowing the coverage skills are kind of lacking, that he may project to be a nickelback at the NFL level, but he does give them some versatility. I think a lot of it is San Francisco really doesn't want Lenoir having to slide inside. I think they really want to have Trey Brown be that fourth cornerback, but currently he's that third guy. So Green's probably going to go inside. And I think that they want to get Lenore out there on the boundary more so than ever. So you're seeing them draft two guys that can play nickel, and even Stout can also play safety for you too. So there's somewhat of an interchangeable kind of player right there for you. And I think, while Sigel may project to be more of that nickel back with Mustafa's injury and them having Richie Grant and Pinnock and Jair Brown, and even Syra Neal, I think there is a path for him to play early. But I don't think Sigel can be a day one safety. I don't think he should be. I think have him be a special teamer, have him be a nickelback safety hybrid. He'll be your fifth, be your fifth safety on your roster. He can be your sixth cornerback if you need to in a pinch. I think that's where his value is currently. But zero coverage penalties. He's not grabby at all. He's not going to get you called for holding or DPI. He ain't that player. And does help. He was a team captain. So he's a good guy to have in the locker room. He'll give you his all. And again, fits that Saleh-like mold. So you're seeing San Francisco wanting to get back to the basics. They're starting to get a lot of guys in there where you have, again, their first 5 picks are defense, and you add a few more later with a player like Marquis Sigel, where 6 of your first, 8 players are on defense. I think it's a good pick for them. And I really think Saleh, while you can debate, is he a day one impact? I think Saleh did a darn good job with this draft overall on his side of the football. You can certainly pick apart Kyle Shanahan's picks, but I think outside of the Nicholas Martin pick, who I think could be a good player, just was rich for his selection, I think they did a pretty good job. And I think Marquis Sigel as your fifth safety, fourth safety, maybe there's a place where Mustafa's on the pup list to begin the year, and it's, Brown and it's Pinnock and it's Grant and Odom. Sigel slides in there, can be a player for you. So I like him a lot. The only problem is he really doesn't give you much on special teams. He didn't do it at Kansas State. He was a core special teamer for NDSU, but didn't do it at Kansas State. So we'll see what he can do for San Francisco in training camp. Again, for Watkins and Sigel, those are two players where you're like, training camp is a big place for you. This is your stomping ground. This is where you can make a name for yourself. And so you're hoping that young guys can step up where, yes, training camp is always important. Like that's where, young guys come in and make a statement. But, San Francisco is never afraid to have 5th round picks play over free agent signings or 2nd round picks or 3rd round picks. So I think if Sigel can make a name for himself, Watkins can stand out. Those are certainly two players to watch. They're underdogs and they do want to fight for a spot. So I really compare, and I talked about him a lot during the draft process, Mac McWilliams, who I think went to Philadelphia in this year's class. Shorter armed guy, but he was going to push veterans on his roster. Sigel has that to him where he's going to make veterans earn their spot. And it's a good player to have in your room to push some guys around him that may feel complacent. No, like Jair Brown, year 3, big year for him. You're going to get pushed by a player like Marquis Sigel. He may not start for you, but there's some grit behind those eyes you want to have on your defense. Tommy Huxley says this, Sterling, Kyle can't draft for crap. So many reaches on offense, no offensive line. I'm so freaking pissed, man. The offense gets not an F, they get a Z in the defense. The defense gets a B. Tommy's going off here. Kyle needs to get his dumb ass out of the draft room forever. He also says he neglects the offensive line is the reason he won't ever win a gosh darn Super Bowl. Bobo says here, I agree. Tommy the Joke Shanahan. Kyle the Joke Shanahan. I kind of already addressed the offensive line, but I'll do it again if you weren't here. I know you don't want to hear this, and I would push back. And I don't agree with John Lynch, but, there's the guys they could have picked. Charles Grant, Miles Frazier, Logan Brown, Chase Lunt. There's players there. Some guys you can't take. Jonas Savane went like 38th overall on day 2, so you can't help that. But The Raiders drafted like 6 offensive linemen. I think San Francisco could have done better. And I think a lot of my problems come with the next pick. And I think where the draft, comes into play. And the next pick to me is my biggest, like, what are we doing kind of pick? Mainly because I do think you could have gotten Nick Martin on day 3. I do think you could have gotten Jordan Watkins a little later. I do think you could have got Marquis Seigel a little later. Now, again, maybe I'm wrong, but there was a big gap. And I think here's a lot of people's contention points with San Francisco and their draft. Because I was shocked as well that San Francisco made no trades from pick 160. They sat there and didn't make a move until pick 227. They wanted to make all 11 of their picks. Now, maybe they tried for a trade and it didn't work out. And I think the next pick being quarterback Kurtis Rourke from Indiana in round 7 at pick 227. This to me is like the WTF pick of the draft. Not because of the player they took, but to me, I'd rather trade pick 227 and say, I don't know, pick 252 and get up in the 180s. Now, maybe they tried and teams said no, but when you're seeing offensive linemen come off the board and you hear John Lynch say, well, there was guys we liked, but, didn't want to reach and, didn't want to do this and that. And it's like, well, John, sometimes you're right and you want to pick the guys that you like. And I think San Francisco walked away with 2 offensive linemen. One is a draft pick and one is a UDFA that can help you. However, what are we doing? Like, you have Brock Purdy, who you're going to pay $55 million a year to most likely. You sign Mac Jones to a 2-year deal. You like Tanner Mordecai, at least somewhat, still on the roster. And then you draft a quarterback. Now, Kurtis Rourke is 6'4", 230 pounds, 6 years in college, 25 as a rookie. This past year at Indiana, over 3,000 yards, 29 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 19 big-time throws, 10 turnover-worthy plays. He's a true pocket passer, a 3-time captain. He's a fundamental passer. He has good balance. He has good footwork. He has good mechanics. He's worked on play action before. He's poised in the pocket. The arm strength isn't great, but it's there. It's good enough. He's a good deep ball passer. He can process, but he wasn't asked to process much at Indiana. He's a one-read quarterback there pretty much. So you can kind of go and talk about, well, that really is Kyle Shanahan's guy. Do what I tell you and don't do anything else. Be just the Kyle Shanahan, puppet in the quarterback room. That kind of is Kurtis Rourke. He is one of the best touch passers in the class. So again, there's a lot to like. He has really good, ball placement. And so again, there's so much to like from him. But he also has the injury history. 2020, hurt his shoulder. 2022, tore his ACL at his right knee. 2024, injured his thumb. Also, tore his ACL in his right knee again. Now, he played on it this past year, and that proves he's got that dog. He'll play through injuries, and he actually led Indiana to the playoffs with the injury. So, there is, again, a lot to like from Kurtis Rourke. However, with Bobo and Tommy Huxley and many, many Niners people discussing, the offensive line. Why didn't you address it? John Lynch kind of pushing back, saying, well, certain guys we didn't like, didn't want to reach, and others. And I get that, but at the same time, so you don't draft the tackle. Who's your swing tackle? I don't know. Who's your guard situation? Barch and Hennessy and Burford and Pooney and Zakel? Okay, like that. You love Pooney, but left guard's a big question. And I'm not one that thought, first round, second round, but third round, get a tackle. Fourth round, get a tackle. Okay, fifth round, get a tackle. Okay, sixth round, get a tackle. Trade up and get a tackle. But they didn't do that. And instead, they picked a quarterback that has serious injury history, 2 torn ACLs to the exact same knee. And you already knew as fans, as a team walking into this year, that you would have thought if you're going to invest $200+ million probably into Brock Purdy for the next 4 years, that you may want to keep him upright. You may want to keep the guy who has, torn his UCL, who had a shoulder injury, who's broke a rib, who is a dog and will fight through those things, but a smaller guy. You don't last very long if you're getting beaten and broken up. No quarterback does. It's the Josh Allens that are the outliers there. It's not the Drew Breeses, the Russell Wilsons. Like, those guys can do much for you, but they're smaller guys. The more hits they take, the more injuries they happen. And so to not address the offensive line from a pass protecting point of view, to then take the quarterback that probably has some of the biggest medical red flags in the class, not named Quinn Ewers, who fell for those exact reasons. That's where I start to say, what are we thinking? And it's no indication or not indicative of how I feel towards Connor Colby, their next pick in this draft. But, I understand quarterback is the most important position on the football field. If you ain't got a guy, you're not going to be good, most likely. It takes a really good defense and a lot of good players around them to carry a bad quarterback. And I get, wanting to take one of those guys. San Francisco, of all teams, knows sometimes you got to have 3 of them to go to the playoffs. And so, Brock Purdy's here for a reason, franchise quarterback for a reason, because 2 guys in front of him got hurt and he got a chance. Which, okay, if that happens with Kurtis Rourke, that sucks, but okay. But even then, wouldn't you want the guy that's like healthy and can like stay upright and not have 2 torn ACLs and a shoulder injury, and a guy who probably isn't going to be ready for training camp? And if he is coming off an ACL. Like, he's probably not going to play. One, he shouldn't play because you have 2 guys in front of him getting a big chunk of change in Brock Purdy and Mac Jones being a clear-cut, head and shoulders better quarterback than him. But even if he was asked to play, is he going to play in preseason? Is he cleared to get tackled? Is the ACL okay? Like, that's where I kind of complain, because in my head I go, okay, you wanted the quarterback, fine. Max Brosmer is there. Minnesota grabbed him because Max Brosner fits San Francisco's scheme, fits that Kyle Shanahan, do what I say, and just execute what I'm doing for you. See, similar quarterback. Now, Kurtis Rourke, to me, when healthy, is better, but if healthy is not really the word you want to tie to a player at 25 as a rookie. It's not real. Like, Josh Simmons, tackle, Ohio State, goes, 31 to Kansas City. It's a great pick, but that's still a big risk. Because if he's not healthy, well, oops, it's a swing and a miss. And so it's 7th round, whatever. It's a flyer on a guy for a stash. Maybe it's just me. I don't like stashing a player off a torn ACL that maybe you're projecting to be your quarterback 3. Do you want him to be Brock Purdy's backup in 2 years? And that's a long ways away. But even then, like, the draft board itself had Brashard Smith, who goes the very next pick, and I get it. You don't want to get 2 running backs, but Brashard Smith is good, and he's probably a 4th-round pick. But Casey got him around 7, so I would have took Brashard Smith and signed Max Brosmer as a UDFA. Zeke Biggers was there. Essa Pohl, who, again, goes to Kansas City as a tackle. You didn't get one of those. 500 pass pro snaps. Didn't give up a sack. You didn't bring that guy in. Why? Kobe Bryant, who was probably a 4th-round pick. I don't know why he fell, but he goes to the Falcons. You don't want a better cornerback? That's weird to me. Jake Brenningstool, who also goes to the Chiefs, a phenomenal receiving threat. He'll probably somewhere down the road become Travis Kelce's heir apparent. He's that good of a player out of Clemson. Sean Dolak, linebacker. The Rams took him as a UDFA. I get Nicholas Martin's there, but Curtis Robinson's off a torn ACL. Do you trust Bethune? Do you trust Nicholas Martin? He was hurt last year as well. You don't want Sean Dolak, who's a darn good football player out of Buffalo, now at the Rams. Nick Nash, wide receiver, San Jose State. Caden Prescorn, also a tight end. He didn't take one of those. Jalen Conyers, out of Texas Tech, didn't take one of those. Logan Brown, tackle. Willie Lampkin, a guard, goes to the Rams. Didn't take one of those guys. Jared Ivey, who somehow went undrafted, could have been an interior pass rusher for you out of SMU. Seattle gets him as a UDFA. What's going on? Jaw Joyner. San Francisco, for all the great things they did, Alfred Collins, Mykel Williams, C.J. West, Jordan Watkins, Jordan James. This is the one pick where I'm like, ooh, this is where you really lost me. Jaw Joyner, Kyman Rucker. You didn't want an edge rusher that can actually rush the passer at a more consistent rate? You didn't want David Walker. You didn't want, again, some guys that were probably day 3 picks, maybe late day 2 picks that didn't get drafted. You didn't want to take them on round 7? Like, there were offensive linemen still there. And they just said, we're good. And I get it. Some guys don't fit your scheme. Willie Lampkin goes to the Rams. He don't fit your scheme? Logan Brown, Kansas tackle. He don't fit your scheme. Now, there were some red flags there. He got dismissed from the previous college, but still, the point still stands. There were some players on the board that weren't a quarterback coming off a torn ACL that isn't even mobile in his own right. So I again, like, it's a Shanahan quarterback. Do as I say. I'll open things up for you. Just play point guard. And that can play at the NFL level. Sometimes you got to have quarterback 3, and I understand that. But Tanner Mordecai's fine. You could sign a veteran somewhere. You could have had 2 offensive linemen. Could have had that tight end. Whereas now you're walking into next year with Kittle, who you obviously love, in a contract year, going to get a big one probably. You have Luke Farrell, your blocking tight end. Then it's Jake Tonjes and Mason Pline. Oh my God, Oklahoma kid, tight end, whatever. The guy that got called for a penalty in the Super Bowl. Like, didn't want to improve that room? Do you trust Matt Hennessy? Nick's account? What are we doing? So to put to rest the Kurtis Rourke conversation, if you're going to complain and otherwise bitch about the offense, this is the one pick that I get you doing to that. This is the one pick that he's going to not play. He's probably going to be a practice squad arm for a year. They're going to stash him. He'll be quarterback 3 next year. He will be what Tanner Mordecai was this past season, where you have Purdy and Dobbs and you have Brandon Allen. Then Mordecai comes into this year. He's quarterback 3. Rourke goes to his spot in the practice squad. Like, you can make it all make sense. I just didn't like it. That's what it was. I just didn't like it. This is my show, so I'm going to stand by that. Now is probably a good time to let you know, if you use that link down below in the description, you can get yourself a can of goat fuel, and maybe you can feel unlike myself right now and feel like the goat himself, Jerry Rice. I was covering the draft day 1, day 2 live on 95.7 The Game. If you were there, I really appreciate it, and I was up till about 2 a.m. recording and doing shows just for you on the YouTube, on the audio podcast, and you want to know how I got through it. Was it drugs? No. Was it sex? No. It was goat fuel leading the charge for me. And I'm telling you what, it is one of the best energy drinks on the market. So click that link down below. Go out and thrive and get yourself a can of goat fuel. As Papa J says here, goats were not harmed during production. Maybe they squeezed a little bit out of Jerry Rice here or there, but then you're getting a little too graphic. But I don't know how the process is, but PETA is not going to come after us. However, I do want to come after San Francisco for that darn Kurtis Rourke pick, because what are we doing? It's good value, but I just don't like it. All right. The penultimate pick for San Francisco in the 2025 NFL draft, where we just slammed them for not taking an offensive lineman. They take one here. And we all said, Oh, what the heck, man? Finally, they took one. That is Connor Colby, guard, and maybe a little bit of a tackle from Iowa, round 7, 249th overall. And this is where I tell you, everything I just said about the offensive line might be wrong. Because Connor Colby, to me, is a pretty good pick for San Francisco. 6'6", 309 pounds, 22 years old, 32-inch arms. And to, again, go back to what John Lynch said, some guys didn't fit our scheme. Some guys, we had certain grades on players and we felt like that we didn't want to reach for them. They weren't there. They got picked, whatever. Essentially what it's telling you is that the guys you liked, we didn't like. The guy they did like, it makes a lot of sense why they liked him, because Connor Colby is an excellent wide zone scheme fit. He can play guard, maybe in a pinch. He has played right tackle in college. He's a good athlete. He has a main streak as a run blocker, a 74 PFF run block grade in over 1,000 opportunities. At Iowa, he's freeing up space for Caleb Johnson, who's a highly touted running back in this year's class. And I'm going to give you a stat here because this is where you start to kind of buy into the idea of, okay, I can see what San Francisco's thinking here. I can see why they waited so long to take the offensive lineman. Now, to be abundantly clear, San Francisco, the way that I viewed this draft class, and I'm sure San Francisco did the same, the tackle class was really thin. A lot of guys that are tackles are probably NFL guards. And a lot of the guards that were there weren't really great, weren't scheme fits. Like, again, Tyler Booker doesn't make sense. Donovan Jackson went early from Ohio State. So there is some give and take with it. And it was an overwhelmingly pretty poor offensive lineman class. There were some top guys, Josh Simmons, Kelvin Banks. But even then, Kelvin Banks, was he agile laterally? There was a lot more questions in players this year from round 1 all the way to round 7. And I think this is exactly why they landed on Connor Colby out of Iowa in round 7. Iowa ran the football 58 times behind Connor Colby last year. That was the third most on their offensive line. When they ran behind Connor Colby last year as their right guard, they had almost 400 yards, 6.8 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns, and 16 rushing first downs. If you add in runs between the center and the guard, not directly behind Connor Colby himself, Iowa totaled 850 yards, 6.9 yards per carry, 9 touchdowns, and 37 rushing first downs. Connor Colby also ranks inside Pro Football Focus's top 10 zone run blockers in 2025 class at number 8 with the 77.3 run blocking grade. He also has a clean bill of health. He also doesn't get called for penalties. Over 420 run blocking snaps, not flagged a single time. The big question is, he can go out there and be a dog as a run blocker. The pass blocking, there's some holes there. The pad level's a problem. He's 6'6", so you want to get him a little lower, sink those hips, get his pads low. The hand striking isn't great. You want to be more accurate there, popping dudes in the chest and in the arms, and how do you defend the quarterback and whatnot. But he's a good finisher. He has started 50 out of 54 collegiate games. But here's more of the question when you talk about his pass blocking. You have to know not just to read the stats, not just to say, oh, the pad level isn't great. And like, that's all true. That's like tape stuff, because you may see stats and go, oh, he's not too bad. Wow. Okay. You may knock him for certain things in pass protection, but Iowa, they don't pass the ball ever. They had 305 passing attempts this past year. That's not including true pass sets. That's just total. 305 passing attempts that Connor Colby was on the field for in 2024. That is just 40% of their offense. For Big 12 offenses, that ranks dead last. So is it he can't do it? Is it they just didn't really do it? So like Jordan Watkins, like Marquise Seigel, training camp, OTAs, preseason, Connor Colby could be a surprise for San Francisco. I think they realize he's already a good run blocker, and if you're Kyle Shanahan, you don't really have to be great in pass pro to play, especially at guard. John Feliciano was competent as a pass protector. Mike Person was competent as a pass protector. Spencer Burford was competent as a pass protector. Those guys played and started Super Bowls, playoff games for San Francisco because they were good run blockers. So, again, you'd rather have a good pass blocking guard, but I do think that, San Francisco may like Connor Colby for the exact reasons I already laid out. I do think because of the pass protection problems, he's going to stick at guard. He has played left guard. He has played right guard. So you're either seeing Pooney's backup or you're seeing a left guard of the future for San Francisco. And one of the big questions I've had is, can he play day one? And that kind of brings in the question of, what is the rotation at offensive line? Obviously, you have Trent. It seems like Ben Barch is the guy at left guard, barring his health, which is a big question mark no one's talking about. You have Jake Brendel. You have Dominic Pooney. And you have Colton McKivitz. Do you then have Connor Colby become your right guard, right tackle, and have that be the case because you want to keep him on the right side? Do you have Spencer Burford be your swing tackle? He's played right tackle at the NFL level. He's played right guard. He's played left guard or left tackle. Like there is experience there for him to play tackle and guard behind Trent, behind Barch, behind Pooney, and behind McKivitz. So that's an option. Or do you want to keep Burford on the left side? He told Jordan Elliott last year that I'm more comfortable on the left side. So does that mean he's a left guard, left tackle, and Colby is that right guard, right tackle? Does Pooney become this like, hey, if things get crazy, Colby goes to right guard and you go to right tackle? A lot of questions have to be answered. They have, I think, 89 of their 90 roster spots filled. So maybe they make an acquisition, but there's a lot of questions. And I do think that, Connor Colby, having played left guard, if Ben Barch goes down, Connor Colby could become the left guard. Matt Hennessy's in there involved too, but who's the backup center? Is it Drake Nugent, Nick Zakelj? A lot of questions there. I do think it's more likely that if somebody gets hurt, which I know people have problems with how San Francisco does things on the offensive line, so do I. And one of my bigger issues isn't the fact that they're not replacing starters. It's that this is a 17-game season, 18-week season, plus playoffs. Someone's going to go down. Someone's going to get hurt. You have to have 6, 7 guys that can play. Whether it's 1 or 2 games, Trent and the ankle, that's a problem. Ben Barch has been hurt every single year of his career. Jake Brandel's in his mid-30s. Someone's going to go down. You have to have not 5 guys, 6, 7, 8 guys. And I think Connor Colby can be one of those players, but that's my bigger qualm, if you will. My bigger problem with how they do things is that, like, you don't have the dogs or the horses to run this race yet. But I think Connor Colby can be one of those guys. And I think at a certain point he could play in year one, strictly based on how good of a run blocker he is. But I think injury is the pathway. Unless somehow training camp, somebody goes down, like last year, Dominic Pooney, Feliciano gets hurt, Burford gets hurt, Pooney takes over and doesn't let go. You never know what can happen at the NFL level. So I think injury is the quickest way, but if you can run block, you're going to play in Shanahan's scheme. So we'll see what happens. And that brings us to the final pick of the 2025 San Francisco 49ers draft class. Pick number 11 on the board. They didn't make a single trade. They stood pat. And with the final pick, they said, Saleh got his guys. Shanahan got his guys. let's bring on Brant Boyer and let's go get your guy, because San Francisco took Montana wide receiver slash special teams specialist or kick returner out of Montana, Junior Burgeon, round 7, 252nd overall. He's 5'10", 184 pounds, 4.53 40-yard dash. And I'll tell you this, not a receiver. I'll tell you this, he ain't going to give you much as a pass catcher. However, this is a pure Brant Boyer pick. He got his long snapper. They're working out a kicker in the mini camp this next week or so for the rookies. He may replace Jake Moody. Who knows? Now he's got his kick return, punt return specialist. Last year, new return rules. As a kick returner, as a punt returner, they want to get more dangerous in every single facet of the game. They tried last year with Isaac Grendo, mixed results, a few fumbles, some good returns, had the big one in the preseason against the Raiders, and we all said, wow. But you're probably going to want him in the backfield more that Jordan Mason's gone. You have Jordan James, Corey Kiner, who I think will probably be the RB4 coming out of training camp. And so you want to move Grendo as a pure running back with maybe a pinch of return game if there's a pinch or a need somewhere someone else goes down. You tried Deebo Samuel. He was their dynamic, hit us a home run when we're down by 2 scores late in the game or need a big spark. At times that worked. At times it didn't. Junior Burgeon could be that team or be this team's home run hitter in the return game. He can be San Francisco's best returner since Ted Ginn. Much better already than Richie James and Allen Rossum and I don't know who else they've had. Ray McLeod. Junior Burgeon, while yes, this is a somewhat of a throwaway pick, it is simply just, hey, we got one pick left. Who do you think fits the most niche need that no one's talking about? Jordan Watkins has some special teams ability. Junior Burgeon, his entire versatility, his entire specialty is on special teams. He's a dog. Like, he's exciting. He's an excellent return man. I know the 4.5 speed doesn't blow you away, but he plays a lot faster than that on special teams. You put the ball in his hand, and it's an entirely different player. I'm going to read you some stats here because I know it's Montana, but if you include the FBS and the FCS, Junior Burgeon was the highest graded punt returner in either division, either league last year. He was the best punt returner in all of college sports. Over the small guys, the little guys, the SEC, the Mountain West, he was the best dude in both leagues. Over his career, 8 punt return touchdowns, including 3 last season at Montana, averaging 24 yards per punt return. And over his entire career in the Big Sky, 16.71 yards per return. That is third in Big Sky history, just behind Cooper Kupp, who had 17. So you're seeing a very dynamic player as a return man and as a kick returner. 1 touchdown, 23 yards per return in his career. And with that, I tell you that Jacob Cowing, watch out. Because last year, and I know people don't want to hear me say that, and I get it. You have injuries, you have maybe a suspension coming up, so Cowing's job is probably safe. But Cowing served primarily as this team's punt returner. And if someone takes that job away from you, and you aren't getting on the field, and you're an undersized, small guy that maybe can do certain things but aren't impactful, that's when you get cut. And I don't want to see it happen, but Junior Burgeon could walk into camp and be like, I'm this team's best punt returner. I'm this team's best kick returner. And it starts to move some guys you and I like on the bubble, and we all say, watch out. Now, again, you have to prove that in training camp and in preseason, but Junior Burgeon may surprise some people. He's a dog as a return man. And again, teams want to find home run hitters late on day 3. And, again, he's a very specific player. He's not going to give you, really anything as a wide receiver, but as a return man, he's a darn good player. 9 return touchdowns at the collegiate level, 8 of those as a punt returner. So San Francisco needs that. Over time, we've seen, the playoffs, Kyle Williams and McLeod and Darrell Luter Jr., there have been some punt return mishaps in bigger games and playoff time. And maybe Junior Burgeon can buck that trend. And for a team that loaded up on defense, and the free agents they signed were pretty much all lower level, floor raising defensive players, but primarily really good on special teams. Junior Burgeon felt like Brant Boyer is like icing on the cake for his first off season in San Francisco. So watch out for him. Don't just think, last pick in the draft, 11th pick they had. Don't sleep. Junior Burgeon could be a player for San Francisco on special teams in 2025. And if, again, Robinson gets popped and Aiyuk gets, the injury is still a problem for him into November, Junior Burgeon could make this team outright as your 5th or 6th receiver and be a returner for you this year. So you want that day one impact player. Junior Burgeon may be that for San Francisco in some way. So watch out for him. And go ahead and tell me down below. We've covered day 1, day 2, and day 3. What do you think of San Francisco's 2025 NFL draft class from round 1? Mykel Williams picked number 12 overall in the draft, or excuse me, number 11 overall in the draft. Should probably get that right. All the way to Junior Burgeon in round 7. What do you think of it down below? My draft grades are going to be coming out during the week. And I'm also going to give you a deep dive into the undrafted free agents San Francisco picked up. So stay tuned for that. A ton of draft content coming your way still. Just because it's over doesn't mean it's over. So I hope you can like, share, subscribe, leave that 5-star audio podcasting review. Follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. Go ahead and use that promo code 49ERSAccess, 49 ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. And you can milk that goat down below in the comment section and get yourself some goat fuel with the link in the description. I want to thank Papa J, Cowboy Chipto, Eric Wallace, Travis Couch, Joseph Ernberg, so many more of you, Bobo's in the comments, Tommy Huxley, so many more of you in here. Stay tuned for more draft content coming your way. And I think to play out, I might as well sing my C.J. West song again. He's a brick. Shit house. Folks, have a great night. Hope you enjoyed the draft and draw your draft grades down below. Can't wait to talk to you again. And as always, until next time, my name is Sterling Bennett, and stay faithful.